Hello, hello.
Hello,
Happy
everyone.
Thursday.
That's right.
At least where we are here, it's Thursday. This is our first live session for
Stake Your Wealth. So welcome.
Yes, I'm Greg, and this is
Mary Daphne,
Mary
MD
Daphne.
for short.
Yep. And together we form the Stake Your Wealth team. So we're excited to be doing these lives. Every week we put out a lesson on a topic of great importance.
Financial freedom.
Yeah, so the topics range from financial freedom to personal investing, personal finance, early retirement, sort of anything smart spending, right? Anything that falls under that umbrella are topics we like to discuss.
Right. Learning financial literacy.
Financial literacy
Because this
broadly.
is not something that they really teach us in school.
Yeah, it's actually remarkable, right?
Yeah.
You go through school and everyone's telling you this is preparing you for life, and then you get out into life and you're
like,
not prepared at all.
You feel like you should be prepared, and you might be in some aspects, but in a lot of aspects you might not be.
You get totally blindsided by things that you didn't expect, and a big part of that is the financial piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Right. Things like taxes.
Taxes. I was just about to say that.
Right.
Saving
budgeting,
money.
Sort of projecting your expenses.
Yeah.
All these things that you need to do as a functional adult.
Right.
We don't really develop those skills in school.
And we do when we have to, but we don't do them in the way that we probably should have.
That's a very good point, right? So when you're doing them on the fly because it's an urgent situation,
like filing taxes,
yeah,
right? Like how did anyone teach you how to do that? Some people's parents still do that for them, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like that's a bad thing, but then maybe you should try to take it upon yourself to learn that as well.
Right, exactly. And so if you can sort of set yourself up for success ahead of time, then you're more prepared for these situations when they happen.
Yeah, and you're less reliant on other people to have to do that for you.
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
Yeah.
The less you can rely on other people to get stuff that's central to your life in order, the better off you're going to be and the more confident you're going to be.
And it's okay to ask for help. And that's why, Greg and I created this channel. And Greg is going to offer a lot of help to everyone watching. And that's great. So he'll guide us all through this. But there's a difference between asking for help and then relying completely on someone else, an external factor to do everything for you, right? You don't ask someone to brush your teeth for you. You don't ask someone to do your workout for you, right? That's just not how it works. And so it's really important to educate ourselves. And this is a place where that's going to happen. So it's great that you're here joining us. Yeah,
and the topic's a personal passion of mine. It's something I spend a lot of time working on and optimizing because it's fun for me. And I enjoy the autonomy that it brings. And so hopefully, in these video lessons and these lives, we can help convey some of that to you so you can take it and, feel more free and empowered as a result. And these lives specifically, the purpose of these is really to go into more depth, go into more detail on some of the topics that we raise in our video lessons. And so this gives you an opportunity to talk to us, to engage with us on these topics.
Ask questions.
And we'll have some questions too that we'll sort of discuss during the live. And it's really meant to be a conversation. So we look forward to having that conversation with you during these.
That's right.
Sessions.
So what's today's topic, Gregory?
So today's topic, we released a video on basically the way to calculate what we call your true cost. And in the video, we described sort of what that means. But really what it boils down to is the cost-benefit analysis of any purchase that you're making or anything that you're going to spend money on. Right? So you're weighing the price of that item or experience, right, against the benefit that you receive from it. And with that, you can create this little equation where on the top you have the price and on the bottom you have the benefit. And the benefits,
what you reap from that experience or product or item.
Exactly. And when you run that calculation, you get your true cost. And your true cost will help you determine whether something's worth spending money on
Or not.
or not,
Yeah.
right? And what you discover is that anything with a true cost above 1 is something you want to avoid,
Right.
or at least reconsider purchasing.
Because it's just not worth
right.
the spending.
Right. If you just think about, how fractions work, if the numerator, the number on top, is higher than the denominator, that's going to be above 1.
Yeah.
And the numerator in this case is price. So if your price is above your benefit, the number is going to be above 1. Right. So anything above 1 says, well, you're not getting as much benefit as you're paying.
Yeah.
Right. And so by contrast, something below 1, less than 1, between 0 and 1, will be something where the benefit you're getting, which is your denominator, it's on the bottom,
outweighs the cost.
Exceeds the price that you pay.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's sort of the concept in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And we use 2 examples to sort of illustrate that. One was a meal.
Yep.
And another was a mattress.
I'm just going to hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Because I want to sort of start off with why the true cost is so important. Why should people care about this?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of calculating this?
That's a great question. And, I think the most important reason we would want to run a true cost calculation is to just determine how to best spend our money.
Right.
Right? Money is a finite
resource for many people, not for the billionaires out there.
Well,
but
even then, technically for them it is.
Yeah. Well, not for Bezos, but
Bezos might be too rich to ever spend all his money.
Doesn't he have more money than one of the countries like GDPs?
Many
countries.
Many.
GDPs,
Yeah. He at the moment, it fluctuates because his is very stock based.
Right.
But yeah, his net worth fluctuates these days between 100 and I think he might have crossed the $200 billion.
I think so.
Something insane.
Yeah. But it's all relative to people. So even he might be to have gotten to that point, right? There's that adage that goes around. Rich people don't get rich by spending a lot of money, right? They get rich by being thrifty and calculative and calculating rather and figuring out your true cost.
Yeah,
right? So it's a stepping stone to wealth building.
It's a very delicate balance because that adage is definitely true, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's an adage, but wealthy
saying,
people tend to be quite frugal.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's also a phrase that says
spenders.
Well, no, I just meant on the other hand, there's another phrase that is you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah, right.
So balancing, and actually that probably is a good video topic that we should do at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there is a situation, there are situations where you do need to spend money to make it. Right?
And one example that comes to mind, but we can flesh it out in a video and live stream, is putting money back into your business, right? If you're a business owner
exactly.
and you make money,
exactly.
will that go to, improving the quality of the work that you're putting out, or will it go to a 5-star meal in celebration of reaching a certain level?
And that's perfect for this topic, right?
Yeah.
Because determining whether you should be frugal or make an investment, really spending money to make money is that's an investment. That's the definition of investment. Yeah. Choosing between those two, calculating your true cost helps you do that.
Right.
Right. So that's a really powerful sort of outcome of your.
So let's start with that. Let's compare. Let's say you're in the video creation business, right? Like we are. Will you, on your first receiving your first paycheck, will you put that money back into the business? And we'll talk about what that looks like. Or will you go out and have a nice celebratory meal? Let's say.
Yeah.
So how do we calculate that? What does that look like? How do you run through that? Or it could just be like a promotion. Right? What do you do with that money? Do you put that into skill building? Technically the business of you. Or do you put that into, I don't know, a trip somewhere fancy? Yeah.
I mean, it's that's a situation where you know the price, right? Or at least the prices are fixed. A vacation, they're not even fixed, but let me just say that the prices...
Estimate. You have the estimates, right?
Well, you can choose the price.
Okay, that's true.
It's clear, right? So let's just say,
a Disney
to
World.
use your example,
Disney World trip.
Let's just say to take a course is $100.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So $100 for a course.
Yeah.
Or do you spend that same $100 on a nice dinner out?
Nice dinner. Okay. Yeah.
So they're your two choices.
Yeah, and you
One
can't
is
do
a skill
both
building.
because you have $100 to spend.
You have $100 to spend. So you can spend it on the course and invest in your skills.
Yourself.
or you could go to a restaurant and spend it on a nice meal.
Right.
Now, this sort of sounds like an obvious question, right? Almost like a leading question. Oh, definitely
The
invest in
dinner.
yourself.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe it's not obvious.
I
To
don't know.
me, it's actually,
Okay.
I think it depends on how you think about things.
Yeah.
For me, I'm almost always going to put the money
Back in.
back into the business,
Yeah.
into invest in my skills, invest in the business's abilities, capabilities, right?
Yeah.
Now, why did you jump to the meal?
Well, because I'm thinking of like if it's a promotion you've been eyeing for years or months, and this is like a big deal for you, and you've been so thrifty, and you've been really, you've been surviving on rice and beans, like the example Gregory gave in the video he put out. I'm thinking of it from the perspective of a reward that you're encouraging yourself to keep doing this. So I'm on the same. I align with Gregory in that definitely reinvesting the money or investing the money in yourself or in the business, right, which are synonymous in most cases. And so I think ultimately I would probably do the course, but I think there's something nice about taking a moment to celebrate. And if that looks like taking a course, right? If for you celebrating is enriching yourself and taking that course, then that's a win-win in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the fact that we both answered
Differently.
that's like it was staged and it wasn't.
It wasn't. Or this is not scripted.
Well,
This
it's
is-
a perfect example of the subjective nature of this,
Yeah.
right? It really is contextual.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And actually, one of my problems that I have with the way I go about things is I sort of deprive myself of those celebrations,
Yeah.
right? I'm so focused on just growing and building and getting stronger and better that I deprive myself to my own detriment
Yeah.
of these rewards.
Right. So
And that's actually something in my previous business we did a lot too. So my previous business we sold entertainment products online. So tickets like to movies, theaters, sports, concerts, theater, that kind of thing. And we keep hitting new milestones in terms of our sales. And we kept saying we'd celebrate, but we almost never celebrated.
yeah.
And at a certain point, you start to get fatigued,
Yeah.
right? And you start to forget why you're sort of working so hard in the first place.
Right.
And so by taking those moments
Yeah.
to celebrate, you get to reset a little bit, take the stress off, and just really be present in the moment
Yeah.
and appreciate what it is you've built.
So I'm all for like taking those moments as tokens of your hard work and the work that you've put in, and to enjoy something. Maybe you are into fine jewelry and you want to treat yourself to that, or to an experience and have, a 5-star Michelin restaurant meal, or jet set across the world to a remote location, whatever that looks like to you, that celebration. I think it's really important to pepper those in now and then to rejuvenate ourselves, to remind ourselves of the why in some cases.
Yeah.
But not to overdo it. And also, I think it's really important to not, for example, if you want to buy a piece of fine jewelry, not to do that because it's a status symbol, or a nice car because it's a status symbol. I think that's when it gets into kind of like tricky waters. I think doing that because you actually like that, and that's a token of you, for you, of your hard work. I think that's very different than saying, well, I need a Chanel bag and a Vuitton and a Yves Saint Laurent just because. I don't particularly like this style, but because it's, this brand mark, high brand, high fashion, that's my thing. I need to do it. As opposed to, well, that Chanel bag is gorgeous and it goes well with so many pieces, and thinking about the timelessness rather of that item. I think that's a very different equation that we're talking about. Very different calculus. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with the denominator, right?
With the true
benefit.
cost, yeah.
With the benefit
The benefit,
specifically.
okay.
Right. What are you getting out of this?
Yeah.
And I think going back to this question of which should we invest in, our skills or the experience.
Yeah.
Again, it's contextual, right? If you have recently just treated yourself to a meal, then you may not get as much benefit from that next meal. So maybe you are better off investing in the course instead, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't done that in a long time, then you're going to really appreciate it, and so that's going to boost your denominator,
Yeah.
which is going to boost your the true cost.
So how do people then decide, like, what is a good number to hit? Like 5 times a year treating yourself to something nice, 3 times a year? Like, is there a good, like, how would people know, well, this month I'll do this, next month I'll do that? Do you have any
Yeah.
advice?
You know, it's really tough,
Yeah.
and it's particularly difficult as yourself to make that call.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to, because these things are so subjective, and often we ourselves can't think in a way that necessarily promotes the best decision.
Yeah.
Because we're so close to the matter.
Right.
One of the best things you can do in a situation like that is run it by someone else, run it by a friend, right? Or a
Yeah.
family member,
Yeah.
and say, hey,
or
look.
a partner or a spouse.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, here's a sort of a judgment call that I need to make.
Yeah.
What do you think? And getting someone's perspective that's sort of outside, that's a third party and isn't in the weeds with you, can go a really long way toward making a decision like that.
And I think the other way to look at it too is, like, if somebody like if it's a family member or a partner or spouse, somebody who is sort of peripherally involved in something, and part of that celebration, like if you want to share that celebration with someone, well, maybe it's like a course that you can take together, or something that you can treat yourself to together, something that will benefit two people. And then in that sense, right, the benefit is extra.
Totally, yeah. I definitely think that when you're spending on experiences that are shared with other people or items that benefit multiple people,
Yeah.
you multiply the value.
value.
And that shows you how fluid that benefit component can be, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly, that we were talking about how the numerator stays fixed,
Yeah.
right? Because the price is the price.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not necessarily true, because the price, yes, the price stays fixed, but your purchasing power dictates whether that's a lot or a little.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you are early on in your career, and money is tight, and every dollar saved makes a difference.
Yeah. Every dollar saved is a dollar earned, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In a situation like that, well, you probably $100 dinner is going to be very different than someone who spends $100
When they go to
getting
lunch.
their haircut,
Oh,
right?
yeah, right.
Or
Yeah,
or going to lunch, right?
Right.
But the point is that they do it very regularly, and it's not a big deal to them.
Right. It's basically like spending $1 for them.
Right.
Like you having spent $1 is their having spent 100.
Exactly.
Like that kind of calculus.
So that's the other part that you need to think about, which
Yeah.
is, how does this, in the context of my overall spending,
Yeah.
what does this look like? Right? The percentage of budget
Yeah.
is another important factor to help you balance that equation out.
So when we were doing this, reminds me of something. When we were doing, years ago, when we lived in a tiny studio apartment in New York City, we were both, working on our individual projects. We had jobs, salaries, blah, blah, blah. But we were still very aware and cognizant of spending money and saving
Yes.
money. When Valentine's Day would roll around, of course, we would want to do something nice and celebratory. But we wouldn't always say, our first reaction wouldn't be, let's go out to eat on Valentine's Day. Because if Valentine's Day is one of those days where they hike up the prices just for no reason other than they know people will want to spend Valentine's Day in a nice restaurant.
Yes.
So we would do one of two things, and we would alternate what we would do. But I really like what we did because I think it's something to share. So sometimes we would do a really nice home-cooked meal with fancy ingredients, fancy, like maybe like a filet mignon or something that we wouldn't normally eat only on special occasions. And we would, engage in like a nice cooking process to have a delicious meal that we would have had to spend more on if we had gone to a restaurant.
Totally.
So that was one thing. The other thing we did other years was celebrate Valentine's Day a little bit later or earlier, so that we could go out to eat, but we wouldn't be charged, just exorbitant prices for no reason other than it's Valentine's Day.
Both of those are excellent examples, because what you're doing there is you're locking in that benefit, right? You're getting that same benefit.
Yeah.
The denominator is staying the same. But in each of those cases, you're lowering the numerator.
Exactly.
Right?
And you still get the same.
You're bringing down the price,
like you said,
and you're still getting the same benefit.
Yeah.
And so when the numerator is coming down and the denominator stays the same,
Yeah.
your true cost goes down.
If anything, I'd say we'd get I would feel even more of a benefit because
Totally.
it's like you're not like cheating the system, you're just smarter than the system.
Yeah, you're beating the
They're
system.
beating the system,
You're
right?
beating
You're,
the system,
you're not
yeah.
buying into that societal pressure of doing what all the Joneses are doing.
Yes. Well, I'm also very grateful to have a wife who
Oh,
sees that and appreciates it.
that's sweet. Well, we have the same
gotta
goals in
plug
mind.
that.
Oh, that's sweet.
So in any event, I think these are a great way to sort of build on this concept of true cost, right? To help illustrate how different levers in our lives, in the context of who we are and what we value, are going to change the calculation. That's why, again, we really emphasize it's your true cost, right? It's not the true cost, because what might be great value for me could be terrible value for you, right? You really need to spend time and contextualize the situation to make an accurate calculation.
Yeah.
But if you don't have much time, you know, this at least you can sort of wing it.
Yeah.
And it gives you a basis for making a decision. This isn't perfect. It's not set in stone, but it gives you a departure point or some kind of data point that you can use to start to come to a decision as to whether or not to make the purchase.
Yeah. So you also talked about how true cost is relative, right? But what about in the situation where you've purchased something and now you've owned it for years and years and years, like that mattress that you talked about? You invested in a mattress that allows you to get good sleep, and so the benefit is extremely high for the cost, right? So it's less than one, which is a good thing. What if you've had that mattress for like 50 years? I don't know. Then what happens? Like at what point does that then become counteractive to the benefit?
Right. So what we're talking about now is sort of cumulative value.
Yeah.
And that's a really important part of this equation. And it's actually so important that the lesson that we're going to be putting out next week is going to be directly addressing that. Yeah.
So stay tuned.
So stay tuned for that.
For that answer.
But it's a great question because in short, the longer you use something, the bigger the denominator gets.
Yeah.
Right. And so as that cumulative value grows, the true cost gets less and less and less.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to show in that graphic in the video. So where you see the denominator going up, but as a result, the denominator going up, the price is staying fixed, the numerator, and you see that the true cost is going down.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what that is about. But you're right. There also is a point where that starts to peter off, to taper off. And we should definitely discuss that in the
next one. So stay tuned.
Next slide. Yeah. So hopefully you found this informative.
Leave your comments down below, and
Yes.
we'll make more videos and have conversations about whatever it is. There's so much to talk about. Like I didn't even get to my question about like sales, if that's a real thing, right? The sales scam.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to say is like if you do invest in something, my view is that you go for the higher quality item and just get less of it. So like that's a very European way of going about things. Back in the day when people would have to go to the tailor and they would get everything handmade, they would buy the material, it would be a whole process, right? They would make one thing and it would be yours. It was basically haute couture without the same price point.
Right.
Nowadays we go in or we order from online or Amazon. It's like everyone has the same thing. And we get like 100 of these things or 20 of these things. Whereas in the past, it would be a few quality items that you'd rewear, and that would last you like 10, 20 years.
Right.
Like not so much in our generation because I think the quality has gone down substantially. And if you do want that quality, you have to pay for it. But back in our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, like we saw Greg's grandma the other day, and she was wearing something that I've seen her in before, and it's so elegant and beautiful, and she's probably had that for 50 years. And it was a 50s style from
She's
the
100,
1950s.
so
Yeah. So
easily possible.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, that's because those clothes were made really well. So do you have anything to say about that? Is it better to get like a handful of like maybe 5? So the same price, right? Get 5 items of clothing instead of 30 items of clothing, but the 5 that you get
Right.
are
Do you
higher
want
quality.
smaller quantity, higher value?
Yeah.
or a smaller quantity, higher quality.
What's the benefit
Greater
calculation
quantity.
there?
The funny thing is, in those situations, the true cost comes out to about the same.
It's the same. Let's say it's the exact
No,
same.
no, no.
The
What
true
I'm saying
cost.
is the true cost comes out
Okay,
to be the same.
can you talk about
Yeah,
that?
because you're in both cases, you're
Yeah.
paying roughly the same price and you're getting roughly the same benefit.
I see what you're saying.
It's just a difference in numbers of
Yeah,
things.
okay.
Right?
So you're organizing it a little bit differently.
Right. I typically go for the higher quality, fewer quantity, just
Yeah.
because I like a smaller footprint.
Yeah.
Economically or ecologically, I should say.
Yeah, and you're
but
a
also when you're
minimalist.
moving around, I don't like a cluttered house.
Yeah,
I don't like
yeah.
a cluttered office. So
Yeah.
if I can do something with fewer items, I tend to prefer that.
Yeah.
But the funny part of that example is that in effect you get the same true cost
Yeah.
in both situations, and it's really just a question of, do you prefer more stuff?
Right.
Right. That's more disposable. If it's something where you need a lot of redundancy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For example, studio lights. Right.
Yeah.
We've got studio lights all around us. That's something where I want a lot of redundancy. I
Yeah.
could have bought one huge panel
Yeah.
for those for the lights, but if that panel goes out, then
Yeah,
we're up the creek without
In
a
the
paddle.
dark. Yeah, exactly.
And so in those situations where you want redundancy, higher quantity, lower price is fine. And also situations where it might get broken,
yeah.
right? Where it could easily get damaged if you're taken outside a lot.
Right.
You want it to be replaceable. So in certain situations, you want to buy the replaceable part
Yeah.
and just buy a bunch of them. In other situations, you want just one, right?
Yeah.
With a toothbrush, you don't want to use a disposable toothbrush
Yeah.
every time. You can
Right.
get them really cheap,
Right.
but it's wasteful, and there's no problem having one working toothbrush.
Yeah.
Right. That's a
Where you
situation
swap
where you
out
really just
the-
want one.
Where you saw about the toothbrush heads, like I'm thinking about the electric toothbrushes, which
Exactly.
are expensive, but then think about how many years you're going to use that.
Yep.
So I think it's like you said, it's context dependent, and also what
Very
your
much so.
purpose is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah. There's so much
There's
we
so
can
much to
talk
talk
about
about.
here, and that's why we're excited about this channel.
Super excited.
We're excited to have you here with us.
Yes, wealth stakers.
Wealth stakers, and lots more where this came from. Stick with us.
Yep. It's a fun journey.
It's a fun journey, and we'll learn a lot together.
That's right. Happy
So,
wealth staking.
Happy wealth staking. Yeah. Catch you in the next lesson.